It was approximately about a year ago that Cajon Valley School District here in San Diego, they came to me and they said, Jason, can you help us think different about how to teach financial literacy inside the classroom? So I began with the basic question of how do we teach financial literacy? And I began to wrestle with the thought instead, but how do we change the learning experience inside the classroom so that financial literacy is absorbed in a more meaningful manner? As I began to wrestle with this idea, I never would have imagined that a 12-year-old girl will be the one to help shape the framework for what's taking place here today. I'd like to introduce you to her. Her name is Julia. Julia is this bright 12-year-old girl, and she loves basketball and volleyball, and when you get to know her, she has such an amazing heart. She's been given the gift of compassion to serve others. But there's something else about Julia I'd like you to know. She happens to be my daughter. And as beautiful and as amazing as Julia is, there have been some real struggles in her life, and they've been centered around the topic of math inside of the classroom. And as she had these struggles, my wife and I did everything we could to support her, working with the counselors and the teachers. And the more that she struggled, seemed for some reason her frustration seemed to grow. And there were many times in our home at night that frustration would express itself with tears down her face as she would cry out and say, I'm just so stupid. I can't do this. Dad, I just want to quit. It was as if our daughter was losing hope in her own future. And what made this burn for me even deeper is I was supposedly the professional in the house. You see, I'd spent the last 2 decades of my life in the financial industry helping individuals solve these complex problems, and yet in my own home, I can't even help my own daughter. We begin to ask the question, is she alone? Are we alone? But how do we get our math scores back up? But more importantly, how do we get our daughter's confidence back up? So as I looked into this, I wanted to know what is happening inside the classroom, because we realized that this was not just about math. This was about giving our daughter a life skill set that was financial literacy that she could use for the rest of her life. And so what are the classrooms doing to teach financial literacy to our young children? Well, I came across some information that I'd like to share with you here today. According to the Council of Economic Education, it was established in 1998, and they conducted research over all 50 states, K through 12th grade. And this is their 2018 findings. Did you know that since 2016, not one single state has added personal finance to their K through 12 standards? Did you know that only 17 out of our 50 states require high school students to take a course in personal finance? Did you know that only 22 states require high school students to take a course in economics? And did you know that there has not been one single state since 2014 that has added this to their standardized testing when it comes to economic concepts? It's remained flat at 16. The summary of this 2018 report was this, that there's been little increase in economic education and absolutely no growth in personal financial education. Why is this so important? Well, here in the United States, 2018, we just crossed over $1 trillion of credit card debt. That is $1 trillion. Student loan debt, $1.48 trillion. And what's attached to this number that many don't see is we are graduating kids out of college, they're going on to get their first job, and they're wanting to grab that American dream of being a first-time home buyer. And this number is becoming an Achilles heel to that transaction taking place. We are literally breaking the backs of our youth in debt. Now, I'm not here to discuss nor debate why are the numbers not growing inside the classroom or how do we end up being so broke as a country, but I want to take you back to a thought. How do we change the learning experience inside the classroom so that financial literacy is absorbed in a more meaningful manner? And this, at this point in my career, I believe that principles equaled financial well-being. That if we were to teach this inside the classroom, that a child will walk out equipped for the world. For example, if you make $10 and you live on $7 and if you save $3 over time, that is what they're going to be able to achieve inside their life. I realized something. There was a missing piece to this. And I want to share with you how I discovered what that missing piece was. This takes me back to my daughter, Julia. So one day I was sitting in my office and my daughter comes running in and she says, Dad, I have got the best idea. I'm like, well, honey, what's your idea? Dad, I want to start a business, and I want to sell slime to the world. And I was like, well, that's great. So those who are not familiar with the slime industry, it's like a combination of glue, shaving cream, dye, and glitter. What I do know is that there is an entire global marketplace for kids manufacturing and selling slime to each other. There's YouTube channels. All you have to do is sit down and talk to a 5 to 12-year-old, and they will give you the breakdown of the slime industry. So here my daughter was, passionate with this great vision. And so the first thing that she needed for her business was what? Money. So she began to do chores, and she began to save for her slime business that she was so excited about. But like every great CEO, they know their strengths and they know their weaknesses. And she knew she had it. She wanted to have a profitable business, but the fear was this idea of math. What she decided to do was to hire a CFO, her brother, Hunter. And Hunter sat down with Julia, and they calculated the cost per unit, putting the postage on top of that, so that she knew with great confidence every time that she sold her slime that she was going to be profitable. She was so excited. She kind of had her own little mini business plan, and she was ready to launch this to the world. And what was the outcome from this? Juju Slime, my daughter's business. But what was more magical along the way is what my wife and I had a chance to experience. Our daughter that once resisted the topic of math, she began to gravitate towards it because it was relevant to her. Something that the tears begin to flow, those begin to disappear, her grades begin to increase, but more importantly, our daughter, her confidence came back. This quickly made me run back to my assumption that principles, if taught in class, would equal financial well-being. And I realized that my daughter had helped me discover the missing piece to teaching financial literacy inside of our classrooms. And that missing piece was interest. It was what she was interested and passionate about that got her excited. And I realized that the formula for teaching inside of our classrooms is I plus P equals FW. That interest plus principles equals financial well-being. Another way to think of it is like this, that I represents our heart, where all great things begin with passion. And as my daughter's heart opened up, like a flower, like it opens up to the sun to receive its rays and its energy, my daughter's heart opened up so that her mind was there to receive the necessary principles so that she could have a successful slime business. That was my daughter's financial well-being. It's interesting, you might say, well, Jason, what is that? That's great that kids can run around and pursue their interests and what they're passionate about. What does that mean to the real world? Well, actually, interest is a strong predicament when it comes to employment outcomes. And Round's research is the lead authority on this. And it affects it in 3 specific categories. First, job satisfaction. You might say, well, of course, Jason. Yes, if I show up every day and I'm interested and I'm engaged in what I do, job satisfaction goes up? Yes, it does. Second, job performance. So if I love what I do and I'm engaged, my ability to solve problems and bring value to that institution drastically increases. So if I love what I do and I'm bringing value to where I'm at, the only natural outcome is what? Income and more of it. Research shows us this, but guess what else does? Common sense. So we asked, how do we grab what's happening in the real world and bring this into the classroom to teach financial literacy, to change the future? Well, I believe that is taking place here today. Cajon Valley School District has developed something and that they're deploying inside the classrooms on a daily basis called the World of Work. And they engage students in 3 specific areas. First, what is a child interested in doing? And they're using the RIAS Act as a tool to execute that. Second, what are their natural strengths? What are they gifted at? And third, what do they value? And as a child begins to discover this, and the child says, man, I love drawing and I'm so artistic and creative, the World of Work says, did you know there's jobs like being a graphic designer or an architect that you could apply these skills to? And as they begin to unpack this job, the job leads to the conversation about earning a paycheck. And this is exactly where financial literacy meets this child. Just like it met my daughter, it met her where she was passionate and interested so that they are willing to want to receive the necessary principles. Because financial well-being, in my opinion, is unique to all of us as our fingerprint. And it is our job to help our youth discover what that is. My daughters, it was slime. I believe one of the greatest freedoms that we can give to our youth is to show them the path for them to achieving their financial well-being. So it is my hope that as you hear this mission, that you are asking yourself just one question. What can I do to help? And I'd like to commission you in two different ways. First, experience is the greatest teacher to us all. That you will engage our youth and you will share with them your good financial decisions that you've made and your poor financial decisions that you've made so that they can learn from your experience. And second, that you will engage the hearts and the minds of our youth and that you will help them discover who they are individually, why they matter in this world, and that their dreams and that their talents, they are needed. This is my call to us all. Thank you.